Amen. Amen.
Instead of vitamins, yeah.
Okay, so what I'd like to look at is the focus of Parashat Korach is very much Korach. It's very much what we spoke about with the staff of Aaron. That's what we normally focus on. But at the end, in the chapter Yud chapter 18, there's this seeming strange like mitzvah that is presented, and I'd just like to explore it for a few minutes and see what we can get. It says, "Vayomer Adonai el Aaron, atau vanecha veit avicha itach." You and your sons and your father's household, tis'u et avon hamikdash. You have to tis'u. Tis'u means to carry. To carry the avon hamikdash. That translated as like the any guilt associated with the mikdash. Ata uvanecha itach, you and your sons with you. Tisu et avon kunatchem. You have to bear any guilt connected with your priesthood. Anything to do with the kahuna is going to be something that Aaron and his progeny have to look after. So Rashi says it's a bit of a strange thing. Where is this suddenly coming from? We do know that in the previous psukim it spoke about that. And how our people felt that they were so far away from everybody. They're worried to go into the Beit close to the Mishkan because they're worried that they're going to die. They're worried that trying to come so close to Hashem in the way that others have tried is going to be very negative for them. So Hashem says to them that maybe they're still going to try. And Rashi says, "Vayomer Hashem el Aaron leMoshe amar she'omar Aaron." Hashem didn't speak to Aaron directly, but rather he spoke through Moshe. To speak, he spoke to him and he told him to be very careful with Bnei Israel. That they mustn't go into the Mikdash. Why? Because we know that if a person, a Zara Karev Yumat, that a person who's not supposed to be in the Beit HaMikdash will die. And we've seen that from the 250 great sages that wanted to go closer to Hashem, but they went in the incorrect way, so they got burnt up. So now it says that the Kohanim are responsible. As Rashi says, Tisuret Avon HaMikdash, Aleichem ani matil onesh hazarim, sheyechtu be'izka advarim hamkudashim hamusurim lachem. Says, on you, I'm giving you the responsibility on those people that are going to sin and do anything incorrect regarding the Mikdash. And what is the Mikdash? All the things that are holy, that are the responsibility of Aaron and his sons and his father's house. What's his father's house? Is the father's house of Bnei Kahat. The Bnei Kahat were responsible for certain aspects of the Mishkan. What are they responsible for? The Ohel, the Aaron, and the Shulchan or Klei Kodesh. The Ohel, the Aaron, the Shulchan, and all the different vessels. Atem teshvu v'tasiru al kol zar haba liga. You, he says to Aaron through Moshe, says Rashi, you've got to make sure that anybody who wants to come close, that you have to make sure that they don't do anything wrong, that they don't come close enough so as to fall into the status of being obligated to be punished for coming close. And he says that Tisuet avon kunatchem, you have to look after the sin of the kuhanas. She'ena masura lelevim, that the kahanut, the concept of being a kohen, is not given over to the levim at all. But tashiru alevim ashogim shelo yidu aleichem ba'avodatchem, and you also have to make sure that the levim don't do the wrong thing. And I saw from one of the other mafarshim, and he makes it very clear that we have to remember that we have this idea that the Levim are part of the Kohanim, but in actual fact, we know that when we give aliyahs, we give Kohen, Levi, Yisrael, and the Levim are not part of the Kohanim. The Kohanim are specifically come from the family of Aaron. That's it. It's the family of Aaron, nobody else. The rest of the Levim are from their own families. And that's why we find that if, for example, we know that if a Kohen marries a Gerusha, marries a divorcee, or marries a Gioret, a convert, so then the Kohen, the children of that Kohen become Chalalim. They no longer are able to, for whatever reason, that relationship is no longer able to pass through the great Kedusha of the Kohen. However, it doesn't apply to a Levi. And so therefore, I think it was the Orach Chaim HaKadosh. So he says So therefore, we see that the kedusha is only vested in the Kohanim themselves. They may be cousins, but there's no direct relationship between the Kohanim and the Levium. Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch says he wants to understand what is this all coming from, and he says to machloket Korach. He says the result of the machloket of Korach is one thing is absolutely sure, that ha'am urchak me'avodat hamikdash, that the people distanced themselves from coming into the Beit Hamikdash. They were worried that they would get hurt, and not only that, is that part of it is that the Kohanim make sure that they maintain that distance. It says says the reality is that standing so far from the Beit Hamikdash is good for them because it protects Bnei Israel, and that's really what the Kohanim's job is. And he says there that says what is Avon HaMikdash and Avon HaKohanim. The Sifri wants to understand what are the sins of the Mikdash and the sins of the Kohanim. It's all about being in the environment of the korbanot. So we understand that when we speak about the about this, that it says there that they have to be careful about Avon HaMikdash, explains Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, it's not only talking about the Beit HaMikdash itself, the Mishkan itself, but it's talking about anything generally that is got a higher level of Kedusha, that the people have to, that the Kohanim, who are effectively the guardians of the Kedusha of the Jewish people, that the Kohanim have to be careful to ensure that they protect that from people who are not appropriate to be there. And therefore he says, Yesh bakachet klapei Mosad HaMikdash. He says, what does it mean? Saying not only about the Kohanim themselves, says Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, there's a chet in terms of the approach that even if the Kohen himself is coming towards the to do something, some type of avodah in the Beit HaMikdash, but he doesn't have complete total focus. So for example, a very simple thing. He does the proper zrikat adam, the way he's got to splash the blood. And he does the proper bringing up of the chaylev, the different types of korbanot that he brings. And he does it perfectly. So technically, it's absolutely perfect from a practical point of view. However, he doesn't know who the person, who's he bringing it up on whose behalf. But often he says that in that way, the Kohen doesn't know who's the person who sent him as his representative to Hashem. So then, even though he's doing all these things, nonetheless, the person has sent him there. That's also an avera. Even though we know that Gemara tells us that even if you bring a korban and you don't do it in the name of the person who did it, it's still kasher. Nonetheless, the Kohen who does that, who shachak, he just forgot to the person who was doing it for nonetheless, such a person, that Kohen has to understand that he carries the sin of the person. Because when a person is representing somebody else, especially in the performance of a mitzvah, said the Mefarshim that the person has to ensure that he has them in mind all the time. And that's why when, for example, that a person is a shaliach tzibur, or a person is doing a mitzvah on behalf of somebody else. Let's say you say, okay, I'll do it on your behalf, not to worry. I'll take this on your behalf. It has to be ensured that even during that process of time, that space of kedusha not only holds that person who's doing the action, but also the person on whose behalf that action is being done, because that the way Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch explains it specifically in the Korbanot, he says shchicha kazot. When you forget about the person that you're doing it, then what actually is, you lose total machshava, you lose total consciousness of the action that you're doing. And when we're doing a mitzvah on the highest level, especially one in the Beit HaMikdash, one has to have a specific focus. But when we're doing mitzvah on behalf of others, and we're representing others, explain the Mefarshim how much more so we have to be ensure that we have total focus of who we're representing. And sometimes, sometimes I act as a chazan sometimes, and it's not always easy because one can get quite involved in the davening and really see that one is standing before Hashem in all these beautiful ways, doing it for oneself. But one always has to remember that there are people behind that that one is representing. Which, by the way, I haven't seen this anywhere, but I've been thinking about it a lot. When we say when you're sitting in shul and there's a chazarat hashatz, the repetition of the amidah, or any bracha that is made, whatever the case is, it's so important for us to say amen in a voice that can be heard not only by Hashem, He has everything, but a voice that can even be heard by the chazan, because it's so important in this situation. We understand as representatives that we carry the responsibility of the people we're representing. It's also nice to know that they feel that they are also part of that process. I wish everybody a beautiful Shabbos. Please God, we should carry our community in a way that brings to health and to safety. We all know it's very difficult at the moment there. Let's daven for each other and for ourselves. And that way, please God, we will only see good things and Besorah Torah in the coming week. Have a beautiful Shabbos.